Good afternoon and welcome to the Music and Technology Seminar at Carnegie Mellon. The global video game industry is a massive market, predicted to be over $300 billion in just a few years. Games, of course, are not just for entertainment. Games can also be educational, or a game can tell a story. Our guests today will tell their story about a new game company based in Pittsburgh and which began at Carnegie Mellon, Team Crescendo. I would like to acknowledge Felix Lee's help in arranging today's seminar. And now, please welcome Carnegie Mellon recent graduate in electronic music, Paul Savitz-Vogel, and current Carnegie Mellon composer and BXA student, Mark Zhou, to today's seminar.
Hello, thank you for having us. As Ricardo so generously introduced us, I'm Cole. I just graduated electronic music in May, and I'm currently doing a grad program at Northwestern, so I'm in almost Chicago right now. But I'm super excited to be back for this seminar. And then Mark, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we can play the trailer.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you, Ricardo, for having me here. I'm Mark. I'm a current BCSA student in CS and Music Tech, and I do composing and some sound design for this game. And
yeah,
for my studies,
start,
I'm also doing a bit
sorry.
of like. Oh, sorry. I'll just finish. For my studies, I'm also doing a bit of like music tech related research. So yeah. Okay, you. Oh, cool.
So, yeah, sorry, Zoom is being Zoom. We'll just start by playing the demo trailer that we released like 2 months ago now. If you want to, after this seminar, our demo is available to play on Steam, and we're currently sitting up, I think we just hit 4,000 wish lists a week ago. So we're super excited about that. And yeah, Mark, if you want to just play the trailer. So, that's the trailer for our game. I'll give a little brief explanation on it, and while I'm doing that, Mark's actually going to play some of the demo, um, so you can watch as I give a small elevator pitch on what the game is. So Memoria Wake is a isometric, which means the camera perspective that you just saw, where it's from almost bird's eye, but three-fourths perspective, is an isometric game. We take a lot of inspiration from genres like Souls-likes and Metroidvanias. You might have heard about Silk Song, a very popular indie game that just came out. That's an example of like a Metroidvania, where there's kind of locked progression that you have to find your way around the game, fighting enemies and doing exploration quests to unlock. Story-wise, the game takes place within a dream. So our protagonist, who is the cat mask in the jacket, is waking up in an environment where all of the entities and environments are based off of his memories, but then they're augmented and distorted, like a lot of dreams are. And the game is planned to be 4 levels. It's a non-linear recollection of his life. So the first level, which is where Mark will be playing part of the demo, takes place during his early childhood. So all of the enemies are kind of built off of toys or critters that he was afraid of as a kid. Yeah. Mark, if you want to start one of the files, I don't know which one you're planning on. I'll be quiet for a little bit while we hear the sounds, and then I'll start talking again. So all of the sound effects and music that you're hearing right now are mainly composed by Mark, who does all the sound effects and music composition for the game. I'm the creative director, so originally I was going to do composition for the game, but my style is very electronic. So as the creative vision of the game kept forming, we realized that maybe my composition style was not the best fit for the game. I might possibly compose stuff for level 4, which takes place in a more urban environment, but that's still on the table. My main role is to make sure that all of the artists on the team, whether that be Mark, who does sound and composition, or our 2D artists, or our 3D artists, or story writers, or gameplay designers, that they're all in communication with each other, and that the creative vision of the game stays consistent. I also do write the dialogue for the game, which you might have seen a snapshot of in the picture. Based off of where Mark is in the demo, we might come across dialogue. We probably won't. But yeah, Mark, if you want to, while you're playing the demo, I know it might be difficult to talk a little bit about it, but if you want to share anything about the music while you're playing, or I can keep talking if you would rather.
So I can share the music here. My turn. Technical difficulty.
Yeah, it seems like you're stuck in a corner. What happened here?
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Here we go. I can share something about my thoughts behind music in this region. So this is called Sura, and it's
sorry, if you could like reduce the volume of the music in the game.
Sorry?
If you could reduce the volume of the music.
Oh, reduce the volume? Okay.
Yeah, your voice is like very loud.
Is that reduce the music volume?
Yeah, that's better. That's good.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so this track is actually the first track that I composed for this game, and I wanted to make a strong impression. And when our boss Hank came up with the game, he wanted to be a dreamlike mood. So I was playing around with some elements that might, like musical elements that might relate to a dream. And from the environments that, or from the vision that Hank was telling me, I thought this area could be like a little bit windy, maybe, and mostly peaceful. So I was playing around with the idea of like gusts of wind. So that I try to reflect that mood in the string here. Not sure if you can hear it well, but I will go into more detail methodologically later.
So aesthetic wise, as you heard Mark say, our the lead developer of the game, Hank, originally just wanted a dream aesthetic, and that was a very vague description of kind of creatively where we could take this game. I think when people hear the word dream, there's many different interpretations people can have of it. And when we were originally starting the creative vision of the game, there was a bit of a rift within the team between people who interpreted the word dream as something more fantasy-like versus something more memory-oriented. So we had a bit of a difficult time finding that middle ground. But I would say that like Mark's music especially helps merge those two together. I think there's a lot of childlike whimsy, but there's also a fantastical element to it. And that's what we tried doing with designing all of our enemies, making sure that all of the kind of not just like literal artwork, but all of the designs of the enemies and environment were a merge and meeting between fantasy elements and dream-oriented aesthetics. I think before we move on to music or the technical side behind the music, if anyone has any like creative questions about the game, maybe now would be a good time for that, or we can also just clump all of the questions towards the end.
Just a quick question. Which engine do you use to create this?
We use Unity.
Okay.
Yeah, Unity is our main engine, and then we also have a few additional like applications and engines that we're using in collaboration with Unity. Of course, like Fmod, which you'll see, and then we also use like a Inky, which is like a file for like writing dialogue. We make all of our 3D assets in Blender before importing them into Unity.
How long does it take to create one of these?
A very long time. So origins-wise, as you heard Ricardo say earlier, we actually started at CMU. So there's a game creation society at Carnegie Mellon where every single semester people will bring game pitches to a just society of people and say, here's all of the team members that I'll need to make this project happen. And then they'll recruit team members, and for that entire semester, they'll make a game and then display it at the end of that semester. The original version that we had of this was very unpolished, but we were all still super passionate about the project. So we just kept going after that semester. So we're no longer a part of the Game Creation Society at CMU. We're now like an independent company, but we've been working on it for just over 2 years now. I think the team like hit its second birthday maybe a week ago, which we never celebrated. But it also definitely depends on what kind of game you're making. Our game is super involved. It's very multimedia. There's a lot of different aspects that are required. There, as you can see, there's just an immense amount of 3D assets that are needed. The game itself, the playtime, depending on people's familiarity with isometrics, is going to be 8 to 12 hours. So there's a lot of gameplay involved in making sure, or there's a lot of work involved in making sure that there is that amount of gameplay, and that there's an amount of new content constantly being cycled throughout the entire game. What Mark has walked around so far is supposed to take a lot longer, but Mark went in and defeated all of the enemies already, which is why you're seeing a big lack of them, but it usually takes a lot longer to get through these sections of the game. Sorry, I know that that's a super broad question, but hopefully I answered.
No, it's quite. Is it for sale? Is it for sale?
So we're planning to release this. We don't have a set release date, but we're projecting that our release date is either going to be in the very end of 26 or the very beginning of 2027. Right now, the demo is on Steam for free, which is about 1 to 2 hours of the game, depending on people's familiarity with games like this. But we're planning to, sell it on release for somewhere between $15 to $20.
Thank you.
Martin, I see you have a hand raised.
Oh, hi. First of all, lovely to see you back at CMU already. Really excited to see how this is coming together. This is a little bit of insider information that I know I have, but like this game, from what I remember you telling me about it, started as a GCS project, like started in the Game Creation Society. I'm curious to know how that transition was like working on this, starting as like an not academic group, but starting with a more like rigid structure, like in the GCS form, and what the transition was like working as a more like independent venture that was more like self-motivated, what that transition was like.
Well, the transition was it was almost like unnoticed at first. For the first semester, things were very rigid. When we were part of GCS, there were about like 30 people who showed up to our first meeting. There was a lot of interest in the project to see it through for the entire semester. But even by the end of the semester, we only had about 15 people working on the project. And then after winter break, when we came back, there were only 10. And the 10 people that kept working on it are just people who are like super passionate about the project and also had a very distinct role within the game. We're really lucky that we had so many people show interest in the game because now that we're at our 10-person project, everyone has a very distinct role. We all cover very separate topics of the game creation process. Like our lead developer is very, very technical and not as seasoned in the creative department, but that's okay because we also have three people who manage either the gameplay or the story or the artistic vision, who are really creative people who make sure that the story makes sense. And our main developer is included on that creative process because obviously we want to include him on that. But it's like we're all lucky that we're able to have like such a well-functioning machine. The hardest part of working after that first semester was that our 3D art was very lacking. We didn't have any 3D artists stay on the team or any mainly 3D artists. And for about like another half a year, our assets were pretty far behind the rest of the game. Just because we couldn't find a 3D artist. It's a very, very difficult field to get into. But then luckily we found someone in School of Art after like a year who was willing to join. And actually for his first year on the team, he was working remotely from Japan, halfway across the world. And yeah, so we like passion is just very important for making sure that this keeps running. Even now, a lot of us, well, not a lot of us, but some of us have graduated starting this year, and we're just making sure that we're continuing to work remotely and routinely on this game. And that's, how we keep it going.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think, are we ready to move on to the music in more detail?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I will take a second. So what I will show now is the first track that you've heard when I started the game. It is technically called the Solura Valley theme, but when I was making it, we didn't know that it was going to be called Solura, so I just named it the theme.
While we're waiting for this to load, do you want to maybe tell us? Oh, never mind. Never mind. Just hit play.
Okay. Yeah, so this is an orchestral template that I downloaded from online. So don't let the number of tracks scare you. Most of them are turned off and unused. But this track is almost all acoustic instruments or like modeled acoustic VSTs. So we have winds, we have strings. We don't have brass. There's some like synth pads, but they're not really noticeable because I wanted the orchestral elements to stand out more. And we have the piano, which is pretty essential to the track, I would say. Okay, I'm gonna play it from the beginning. Sorry, that's not. So yeah, this is the full track.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever heard the exact ending of it before.
Oh, yeah, I
It's a
guess
great
if you're in
ending.
game, you don't notice as much. But the feeling of wind I was talking about before, I tried to create it with the string section in both the beginning and the end. So to model these string instruments requires a lot of orchestral programming, like by automating the some parameters such as vibrato and like dynamics. So I have a lot of automation curves here, and what it sounds like is like it's like a wave of the dynamics going up and down. So if I solo string section. Yeah, if I just go to violin 1, for example, these are all trills. You can see there's like ups and downs, ups and downs. And I'm doing that for all the string instruments here. And towards the end, the strings are all trilling in unison. If you look at the automation curves here, for violin 1. I think it's interpretable depending on the player, but to me it felt like the wind, or maybe you could think of it as waves, but either way, I wanted to feel my process behind this track. And the rest I kind of built on from these parts. So yeah, if anyone has any questions about this specific track.
How do you make the music adjust to the game situation?
Do you mean like switching tracks depending on where you go?
I know nothing about designing games, obviously, but if something changes, I mean, this is obviously very complex, it's what you showed, but if something moves faster or slower or more ominous kind of music, can you pull it out?
Yeah, definitely. So there are many ways to make the music adaptive to the game. Like the most simple way is probably to have a track designated for each region. So like, for example, when you enter a region like the cave, it plays the music.
Is that the most common way to do it?
I think it's the most simple way to have multiple tracks in the game.
Okay.
Because
Why-
you can
why
match
did you-
each track to.
Sorry, why did you use Logic Pro?
It's just the DAW that I'm most familiar with. So
the difference between what Mark's showing right now and how the music is integrated in the game is while what the music that you hear that's playing in the game is a bounced version of this, Logic isn't integrated into the game engine at all. When we're developing in the game engine, we're using a different software called Fmod. And that is the software that controls all of the soundtrack and sounds within the game.
Okay.
And I think Mark, you're going to move to that next, right?
do you think we have time for the boss fight track, or should I move straight into Fmod?
I think we can do the boss fight. We can do the boss fight track for which one are you doing, handler or advisor?
Advisor.
Okay. So we'll drop into Fmod in just a minute, but we'll show one more track that's very different from this one. It's the boss fight for level 2. You might have saw a brief snippet in the trailer, but it's the black cat in the wizard robe. It's that boss fight.
Yeah, so just to give some context for who this boss is, in the backstory of our main character, he goes to university and he does not have a great time there. And the advisor is unfortunately one of the main reasons why. Uh, this is not to hate on any real advisors. I've enjoyed all my advisors here at CMU, but in the game, that's just how it is. And how I went about
there is a story reason behind it.
Okay. But how I went about composing this track was that the advisor is very old, and I thought maybe they would like Baroque music or classical music. Now, this is not to hate on classical music or anything. I really enjoy classical music, but I thought it would be fun to kind of combine the Baroque / classical style with the modern, the more modern game music style. And I took inspiration from Vivaldi and Mozart, like that era basically. And I used the harpsichord as well as the organ. I'm not sure where the organ is. Here it is. Okay, does anyone have specific questions for this track?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I've done some like orchestral sort of like light orchestral programming into like Logic, but I was wondering like how much of these pieces do you have conceptualized before you like actually go into the DAW and like start programming? Like, are you notating any of it all? Do you have a chord progression? Like, do you have melodies written out? Do you have the entire thing notated? I'm just kind of curious about what your process is when you're through until you get to that end point of like having the final track.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it depends on the composer. I've seen people like notate it. I've also seen other people just go straight into the DAW. For me, I think it's somewhere in between. So what I prefer to do is maybe I'll play on a physical piano and have get some inspiration. And then I would have a piano sketch in the DAW of just the piano. And that sketch usually is not the whole piece. Maybe it's the first section. And then I would expand that sketch into all the orchestral instruments and then do a sketch for the next section and then expand that. So kind of in intervals. I usually don't plan out everything unless I get really inspired. I think it really depends on the project. but I never notate anything. I never write any physical notes down or musical notes. I actually do write sometimes, but it's more about the dynamics or the emotions I want to convey for each section. So, for example, I might have a dynamic curve. I just like draw a line to is for either the dynamics or maybe like the intensity, more vague descriptions instead of writing musical notes down.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to Fmod. So first, let me, I guess, introduce what Fmod is for those who don't know. Fmod is a tool that works with our game engine Unity that, and what it does is it handles various audio playback and sound playback behaviors for you. And one example is like for this track, we wanted to keep looping as long as the player is fighting the boss, right? If we didn't have Fmod, we would have to write the code to say, oh, this track, this music file has reached its end, and then check if player is still fighting the boss. If so, go back to the beginning. But there's a lot of complexities in these things. So Fmod is kind of a, it handles this kind of thing for us. So it's way more convenient for both the music side and developers to integrate music into the game. And now I'll open our Fmod project. Fmod has its own app, and it is kind of like a DAW, like Logic Pro, except it is, so everything in this project can be exported into binary files and directly connected with Unity. So for example, let me just go to the advisor track that I just played. Right here. So this file is the exact bounce of what I just showed in Logic. But you can see like there's a little looping region here. So what we can do is we can tell Fmod, oh, we want to loop this audio right here. And this is called an event. And what the Unity side can do is the developers can import Fmod into their code and then basically do something like play this event and then give it the event name. And it will just follow whatever behavior you have defined here for the Fmod event. So if we play this like right here. It just loops. And that's how it's going to be played in the game too. So there's no extra code you have to write for looping. This is definitely an example of adaptive game audio, but is probably one of the most simple ones. Another good example is our dialogue system. So our dialogue system is I think it's commonly known as a gibberish dialogue system. If you have heard Animal Crossing, the characters are basically speaking gibberish, not real words. And what we have done is we have recorded various syllables, and we are playing them somewhat randomly. Let me show you the folder for player dialogue. So what we have done is we have 6 types of styles, I guess. The up, down, normal are for the tones, and then we have 2 lengths, long and short, And we are actually, we have a script to analyze every line any character says, and it's gonna add labels to each word, categorizing them into one of these categories. And during playback, it's going to play the event of the corresponding category. So for example, for Lawn Down, this is for our main character, Nilo. This is an example of where Fmod really shines because this is a multi-instrument. So what this means is you can drag many audio samples into this, and you can select the mode which you play them. So we've selected shuffle, so it's gonna play these in a shuffled order, and it's gonna be random. So if I hit play, you'll hear a random sound.
Ooh, hey, ow, oh,
This is actually my voice with a little bit of audio effects added, but yeah. And another really cool thing about Fmod is you can add spatialization to your audio. So what this min and max distance means is it defines how far you have to be from the location of the audio source in the game to stop hearing it, basically. So say you're talking to an NPC and you're standing like a little bit farther from it, then the volume of the NPC's voice is gonna drop. And this is this feature can work for any game event. So if you can just attach the event to a game object, like, I don't know, a waterfall, then when you walk by the waterfall, it's gonna play the sound such that it's coming from the location of the waterfall. So that's a really cool feature of Fmod. Yeah, I think these are good examples of the very basics of Fmod. Obviously, like a bunch more. For example, you can automate the pitch of the player's dialogue. So we might want to like randomize the pitch or something. There are many, many more features that I don't have time to go into right now. But if does anyone have any questions about Fmod?
Mark, I have a question. So for your music system, does it direct to like the outro section when battle ends, or is there like any indication that you made to make it jump bars or measures?
Oh, sorry, did you say outro section?
Yeah,
when the battle ends?
Battle ends, it brings it to like a stinger that signifies ending, things like that.
So when the battle ends, we in the code we just call like battle music event dot stop or something like that, and based on how we define the event, it's gonna fade out the battle music. This is a kind of a special battle because this is a boss and it takes place in the arena. So in the arena, the arena is locked off from the outside world, so there's no other music in the arena. But say if we are playing, if we see an enemy in Salura, we actually have a system to smoothly switch to the Salura battle theme when we see an enemy. And then when we finish the enemy and there are no enemies nearby that detect us, then it will smoothly transition back to the normal Salura theme.
And compositionally, in the boss fight music for our game, when you beat a boss, there is a sound that plays and like this big visual effect. So we don't have like a way to end the composition. It like could technically just like loop forever, and there isn't like an end point. And a lot of games do tend to do that, but there are certain games, depending on like the musical philosophy of the game, that instead will like compose a orchestral ending. But that is pretty difficult to do because it's kind of difficult to make a ending that can fit in anywhere within the track without being too jarring of a change to end the entire composition. Because especially with, I mean, with most boss fights, people will beat it at different times. They're typically not like a set length. So you'd have to like compose an ending that fits, that can fit anywhere within the track itself.
Oh, and how do you make it switch smoothly? Is it through the same meter that between the pieces and you just go to the next measure in like another piece?
You mean transition between different pieces, like transition between a battle theme and the normal theme? Yeah, so Fmod actually has a feature where you can simply pause an event. So that's what we're doing. So when we are transitioning to a battle theme, we just pause the normal theme. And when we come back, it's just going to start where we left off.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, but other games might do it differently. I've seen many games where each track just plays from the start every time.
Is Fmod an industry standard?
Yeah, it is one of the two popular sound engines.
Who makes that? You know?
I'm not sure. I think.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
So I do have a question. And you in your game you have like several tracks, like you just said you have the OSTs, you have the atmosphere, and also you have combat effects. Do you have like a volume normalization algorithm for that in case like the volume does not get too high, too over the top?
There's no volume normalization. We haven't implemented it in Fmod, I don't think, but this is definitely something we are like considering. But currently we are just bouncing all the tracks with, you know,
Okay.
so.
What was the process of learning Fmod like? Was that a hard software to learn, just coming from digital audio workstations?
Fmod, the app itself is not hard to learn at all. I think there are many tutorials, like official tutorials by Fmod, and it goes into details about like the vast majority of the features that you need. But if you want to work with it on the programming side, I do think you have to read the documentation quite a bit, because Fmod, this is the app that I'm showing here is only like basically half of Fmod. For it to work with the game, you actually still have to call these functions in your code to actually play these events. So you need to learn like how those are defined, what the behavior is, like the syntax, etc. I'm not too involved in the programming side, but so I think it has mostly been pretty easy for me to learn.
So Cole and Mark, have you thought about an actual soundtrack that you would record with real instruments to release simultaneously with the game? And you know, the Lahaka's recording studio is right here waiting for you.
This is, I mean, thank you. That would be awesome. This is a interesting question though that we've actually been actively researching in the past few weeks. We had just gone to PAX, which is a games convention in PAX West is in Seattle. Um, it's one of North America's biggest gaming conventions, and there we had met contacts about uh, music labeling and publishing. Um, and it is a very uh, tense topic when it comes to kind of recording and developing and releasing soundtracks separate from the video game itself, especially when it comes down to rights, recording rights, publishing rights. It is like a really long process that unfortunately is probably not best to talk about at 451, but if you do have like any individual questions about that, we can't talk about who we're specifically working with or like our like individual situation, but through going through like the entire publishing process right now, I think we do have insight on on the entire process. Mark and I have gone to a lot of meetings in the past few weeks about this.
Did you hire a lawyer yet?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And when it comes to music publishing, there is kind of your publishing label actually works separately from like your company's entire law team because they handle all of the rights to it. So um definitely read the fine print when you're signing things with a publishing company. Anything that you would typically approach in the music industry on your own as an artist also applies to video games.
Yeah, big time.
So you should make the agreement with everybody while you're still friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are there any other questions you have?
I have a personal question to Cole. He can answer if he wants. Why did you
Sure.
choose Northwestern after Carnegie Mellon?
Okay.
The reason I ask it, I did the opposite.
Oh, you did the exact okay, that's cool. Um I chose it because the program's a year long. I graduate next September. And uh
What
so I
program
like
is it? What program?
it's called Sound Arts and Industries.
Okay.
This is its 10th year running. So it hasn't been around forever, but um it's been great. I can sit back and talk more about it if you would like. But yeah, I mean I love CMU. That's why I'm back on a Zoom call talking with
It's a lot colder in
CMU.
Chicago than Pittsburgh.
Yes. I also like I think that there's a believe it or not, you might not believe this while sitting in the studio, but there is a culture at CMU that like Northwestern just doesn't have that it's sorely lacking.
Do they have a
Um
record? They have a recording studio there?
Actually, yeah, they do. They have but the control room is no Vlahakis. I'll
There
say
you
that.
go. There you go.
You can't fit 20 people in there.
I'm done, Cole. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Are there any other questions?
I was just this is kind of specific, but I was interested in sort of like how like mixing and like mastering works within Fmod because like I was sort of thinking like okay if you're near this waterfall and the waterfall is playing and then you're going away from it and you're actually like playing the game like can you mix from the game and like how are you seeing how the sounds will actually end up when they're all overlapping in different combinations in while we're actually like playing the game versus just playing a track.
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, we don't really try to mix or master an individual track within Fmod because its functionalities are still inferior to a DAW. So we try to make sure that everything that is going into Fmod is already mixed and mastered. But your question about like the in-game situation versus in the Fmod editor, I think there are some ways to play multiple tracks. So I think if you like open multiple windows and you play one track, you can play like another like concurrently. But I don't think you can test how it would be in the game unless you go in the game itself. But I don't think that is too much of a problem because Fmod makes it super convenient to connect to the game itself. You can actually like drag and drop Fmod events in the Unity editor and attach them to various game objects. So sometimes there is like too little code. Sorry, very little to no code involved. So yeah, usually what we do is just we go in the game and see how it is and then adjust if needed.
And along with everything else in the video game production pipeline, there is just an excruciating amount of trial and error. This is probably, I mean, like the dialogue has gone through an insane amount of renditions, mixing tracks and making sure that everything is like consistent. It takes just a lot of trying over and over again. I think that's probably the big uh the biggest like barrier for video game entry is just like having to cope with the fact that a lot of your work is going to have to go through a lot of renditions of like re-uploading, remixing, making super slight adjustments, making giant macro adjustments, and then getting a completely different product in the end and just like trying all over again. It's it applies to like the mixing of tracks even. It happens over and over again with making your work fit with everything else in the game. But it's all the more rewarding when it works.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I have to thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
And we're looking for
Thank you so much.
That was fantastic presentation, guys. Thank you.